Anyway, back to the ship thing. Is when we intercepted the ship and saw him coming in and looking at it, I don't remember my duty station at that particular time, whether I was on duty when they first spotted him, but it was later because I went on the bridge watch, because I had a bridge watch every 4 hours and underway. That was usually about every day, every other day. I had a duty on the bridge. But we would look through the glasses to see what kind of ship is it. He's coming right toward us. Well, we're blockading the harbor at Havana. He keeps coming. We'll go to general quarters. Engineering officer, general quarters. Well, normally I'm in the damage control. Well, we're not doing that. Another job, since we were short-handed, we only had peacetime staffing the ship, so we only had about 2/3 of the manpower on that we really need. So I became the #1 5-inch mount officer in charge of the bow twin 5-inch guns on the bow of the ship.
So you would have been facing away from Cuba in the blockade?
Well, we were paralleling the shoreline,
Okay.
going back and forth. And anyway, we go to general quarters, and my position was to go to the #1 mount as the officer in charge of that and train the sights, because I was the one sitting there with the scope on it. The guns are controlled by the fire control computer and command in the CIC, the Command Information Center. But there is a permissive circuit that the officer of the mount has. You have a special chair and you have the scope, the sight, so you can see the crosshairs. And you bring the gun in and you put the crosshairs on the ship. And to allow the gun to fire, you have to hold the button down. You don't actually fire, you just enable the computer to fire. If you see something that's not to be, you just release the button, the gun won't fire. So we come into it. Then, I got a set of headphones on, talking to the Fire Control Center, which is in the command center, the CIC, and the Fire Control Officer, which is a gunnery officer, he was a lieutenant, was on the other end, and he says, okay, and he's taking orders directly from the captain, and he says, bring the gun to bear on the ship as it came toward us. And he got getting closer and closer and closer, and he says, okay, we're sending signals to it over all channels and by light to heave to. Stop, in other words. He doesn't. He keeps coming. So I get the order, says, aim the gun 100 meters in front of the ship, in front of the bow, and fire one. This is for real. So we bring the gun in, we pull it we go to the bow of the ship, and then it's calibrated so you can see it at your range distance. Okay, that's about 100 meters. And he says, ready, arm. I hold the button down. We fire one 5-inch round. These rounds about about big, 5 inches round and about so long. And we fire one across and it splashes in the water in front of the ship. And then the orders came and says, okay, train to the bridge. Ready for firing, round 2. I'm looking through this thing, and that's a magnifying. I can see people on the bridge, and I've got them right in the crosshairs. Oh my God, we're fixing to shoot this ship out of the water. And I was sitting there with my thumb ready to go on, and he says, hold fire, the ship is heaving to. Okay, he says, hold it right there. So we just held. He says, we're sending a boarding party on board. So next thing I hear over the headphones is the boarding party manned the boat that was lowered to the davits down to the water, and they arm one officer, it wasn't me fortunately, and a number of sailors. Because the story we got back is the sailors, the officer, after all this over, we were talking about it in the wardroom, and he says, their eyes were about that big around. And he says, I'm a sailor, not a Marine. What am I doing here? They were giving them an M1. At that time, that was the issued rifle of the infantry. So they give them the M1. The officer's got a 45, and they board the boat, and it goes across to the ship, and they go up the ladder to the ship and starts inspecting it. And all that time, I'm still sitting there with the crosshairs, and the gun's pointing just like this to that ship. Okay. So we were sitting there waiting, and it seemed like a long time, but it probably wasn't more than a couple of hours. And then the boat comes back. And the report is this: the ship is loaded with tractor parts. We opened one crate on deck, and it's a rocket. What do we do? So, communications to Washington. The ship has got rocket parts on it. It's not flying any flag. Technically a pirate ship. If you're not flying a flag at sea, the maritime law says it's a pirate ship. Technically it could be sunk. And it says if he doesn't turn around and go back, sink him. That was the orders we got out of Washington. So we signal this to the ship. It says, you fly a flag or we're going to sink you. Well, they ran up a Liberian flag and turned around and started out to sea, and we kept the guns as they went over the horizon.
Wow.
Now, how close that was to war? I don't know. That it was kind of scary. It went on all day, and in the evening, finally we saw him go out and said, okay, we're back in formation, start our patrol again. Another time, another day on the patrol, we pick up a sonar hit. It says it's a submarine trying to run the blockade. And we had, there was 4 ships in our squadron, and one was a newer class, they called it a DDG, because it had guided missiles on it. And it also had a towable sonar transducer. Our sonar was a pretty old system, and we couldn't see that much, but we could pick him up on ping. I remember the captain put the sound on the PA system where you could hear the ping, 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 like this stuff when we were pinging him. And it says, this submarine is coming in and trying to run the blockade. We're going to stop him. So we go into depth charge range, man the depth charges, general quarters, clang, 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 all this stuff, just like you see in the movies. And it's real. And you got the depth charges on it. And we've got also a thing we call ASROC. And there are rocket torpedoes. They actually shoot the torpedo out, and then it goes into the water, and then it starts hunting for things, for pickup of the sound. So we man those systems, and we fire, I guess maybe a half a dozen of those ASROCs out there. But they had what we call dummy heads on them. Instead of having a live torpedo, we just have a small explosion. So when it picks up and hits the sub, it just goes pop. It's like, we call them popping. We're not trying to do any damage. All we're doing is trying to let them know we know where they are, and you're not getting through here. And if they run it, then you go into the depth charge formation and you start rolling depth charges off the fantail. And that was manned. So we fired those ASROCs, and they were pinging them. You could actually hear them go boom, like that. You can hear them through the sonar system, and you'd hear them and know that you know where they are. Anyway, we picked him up, and he would go out. He would turn and go back out, and you hear the bing, ping, 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 ping. They'd disappear. 15, 20 minutes, ping, 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 ping. Here he comes again. Fire again. Boom. Do the same thing. And if he kept going in toward the harbor, that's when we would line up the 4 destroyers in a row and just rolling torpedo the depth charges off. We never did that. We didn't actually roll them, but we were ready to go with him, because he did that I don't know how many times, back and forth, back and forth. And then toward late in the day, and this is around probably 6, 7 o'clock in the evening, we hear him pretty loud, and he says, okay, he's turning, he's going back out at sea, and all of a sudden, ping, ping, ping. He was gone. And the report came back. That was a nuclear submarine, a Russian nuclear submarine. And when he decided to leave, he left at about 40 knots. Regular fleet submarines did not go that fast. 10 to 12 knots was about what we got out of it.
Wow.
So we knew that, well, okay, it was another encounter. We could have been at war. We could have torpedoed him. We could have, tried to do it. He could have fired at us.
Yeah.
But it was real tense. But in all of that, these general quarters for real, that's when I saw the sailors that we've been training for all of those drills down there really turn to. People knew what to do. You didn't have to tell them. And that really was a lesson about training.